Alrighty, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Reformed Dissenters, the show where Reformed Christians dissent against popular ideas of culture by asserting a biblical world view. My name is Bruce Johnson. I am joined today, as always, by my brother Jacob Johnson.
Hello, everybody.
And we are also joined by special guest today, Christian video gamer, Brandon Raby. Is it Raby or Raby? I think it's Raby, right?
Raby. You got it right the first time. One of the few.
Raby. All right. I got it right. I don't know why we didn't check this in the pre-show, but nice.
Details, man. More details.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We met you in the Fight Laugh Feast conference in Knoxville, Tennessee, a couple of weeks back, and I think our good buddy Ralph said, "Hey, you should have him on the show sometime. He's a good contact." And you produce content on GabTV, and we're going to get into all of your bio and all that kind of stuff in just a second. But we're super excited to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, it's great to be here. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, awesome. So don't forget, you as listeners, you can go to trdshow.net. That is our show website. You definitely want to check that out. And on our website, you'll find a list of the many platforms that we are on. Follow us on GabTV, Rumble, and Getter and Gab, obviously. And then, if you hate free speech, you can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for censored content there as well. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because I have to say those words because they're the buzzwords. Just do the things that let us know you enjoyed our content. So you can also, if you enjoyed our content, send us an email by sending us an email at trdshow@protonmail.com. And we would, of course, love to hear from you. If you have resources you want to send our way, if you have basically anything you'd like to put in an email, we just find any old excuse and pop it into an email and send it to trdshow@protonmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. So today we are continuing our series on building a Christian culture. We've since talked to Kyle Hessler. He was our first guest on the show a couple weeks back, talking about professional wrestling for Christ. I think it was last week we had Christian comedian John Brandon on the show to talk about comedy. And now we're talking about Christian gaming with Brandon Raby, and I'm super excited to get into this. But before we get into all of that awesome stuff, we have to talk about our verse of the week. And our verse this whole week has been 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 22. And it says, "Christ Jesus, who has gone into heaven and is at the right hand of God with angels, authorities, and powers, having been subjected to him." And again, that's 1 Peter 3:22. So this verse we talked a lot about on Monday, talked even more about on Wednesday. So if you missed those two episodes, go back and check those out. But this is one of the quintessential verses when we are talking about kingdom growth. We're talking about building a Christian culture. Where on Monday we talked about the disappointment of the elections from last week, but we left you with a reminder that Christ is king. Verses like this are excellent reminders of that very fact. He's gone into heaven. He's at the right hand of God, sitting on the throne, reigning, and angels, authorities, and powers are subjected to him. And we need to remember that fact. And if we lose sight of that, then we are going to fall into depression, really. we're not going to do what Christ has called us to do. We're going to lose sight of the goal. So we need to remember who it is that we're serving, and we need to remember that all authority in heaven and on earth, not just in heaven, but on earth, has been given to him. And because of that authority, we now are capable of going, therefore, and making disciples of all nations, making every nation into a disciple of Christ from the top to the bottom. And so, as part of that disciple work, that kingdom work, working for the kingdom of God, we are working to build a Christian culture. We talked about Christian nationalism on Wednesday, and this is part of that. Building a Christian culture is all of society the jobs that you're doing, the work that you do, you spend most of your life working. How do we do that as unto the Lord? So today we're going to be talking about one of the aspects of society, facets of society that's actually, I mean, just exploding in popularity today. It's becoming a huge thing that so many people do, which is gaming. How do we Christianize the gaming industry? So we have with us today special guest Brandon Raby, and I'll just kind of introduce him, and then we'll get into it. So he is a pipe fitter by trade, and I actually want to know more about that. That's really interesting to me. He attended the Covenant Baptist Church of Blount County. I definitely mispronounced that, I'm almost positive. Started making gaming content to the glory of God about a year ago after getting on Gab and GabTV, and he wants to see how Christians can change the gaming community, and we are so excited to have him on the show to talk about just that. So Brandon, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me, y'all. Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. The internet connection is just a little bit spotty, so we are going to work with that just a little bit. But I am the contrarian in the room right now, which doesn't usually happen. But we've picked the one topic that Jacob and I have slightly different perspectives on. So I will be offering the contrarian perspective, but it really wouldn't be fair for me to be the primary host today. So I'm going to pass it over to Jake because he's really our gaming enthusiast out of the two of us. So, dude, just take it away.
I guess you could call it that, but yeah, I mean, I've played a good many games, so I guess in this sense, between Bruce and I guess I am like the game enthusiast. But starting out with a couple questions. The first one being kind of an icebreaker question. Let me quickly ask, what that pipe fitter by trade is supposed to mean. What do you do? What does that all entail?
Yeah. Okay. So I work construction. I work construction to pay the bills, and because I love it, and that's where God has me at this point in time. I'm a pipe fitter. I work in the. I got in local 102 pipe fitters union about back in 2010. So like 12 years ago now. But I went through the apprenticeship they put me through, and I learned how to fit pipe, how to weld, how to lay out, run piping systems, all that good stuff. So I have a trade
really
that I'm been at for a minute, but that's what I do during the day. That's what I do during the day for long hours during the day.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So going into kind of the questions relating to the topic, kind of another kind of icebreaker question, but what would you say is your favorite game, or really even your favorite game genre, or both of those questions at once?
Probably my favorite. Like, my thing is I follow kind of franchises more than anything. It's not really genre. It's like if I really like one game, like Final Fantasy, JRPGs are really fun. I like those. But if I had to pick one, I'd probably say racing. Like, I can just sit down and Mario Kart every week. I've been doing Mario Kart for a minute, and then but there's just a ton of racing games that I really enjoy. That's probably my favorites, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's one thing that I think is actually really interesting to the to our discussion, which is there are lots of different genres of gameplay. So I think that will definitely should come into our conversation a little bit today. One of the, I mean, even if you just look it up, if you look statistically, the most popular and the most played video games are the violent ones. But a couple of weeks, or wow, this was months ago now, on the show, we had our discussion topic on video games. And the point was made that, well, just because that's the most popular doesn't mean that video games per se, in and of themselves, are something Christians should avoid. I don't think any of us here would say that video games is something we as Christians should not do. I don't think it's at all sinful, and I don't know that you would find anyone even listening to our show who would say that video games are sinful. But I think the question that I have, and for you, Brandon, for you, Jake, as well, which we've already discussed it, but hey, let's hear from you too, is how do we redeem gaming? So I guess it's a twofold question. One is, what does it look like for Christians to do gaming? And two, how do we do that? How do we use that in the kingdom of God for God's glory?
Yeah. So those are really good questions. If you don't care, I would like to reframe it just a little bit, because there are two different categories that you have to keep in mind. The first one being those who are creating games and content around games, and the second one being the consumers, because there's two different mentalities that go into whenever you're making a game or making content around a game, and another one whenever you're consuming. At least that's the way that I see it, because on the one hand, you're looking at doing something a little bit more in the productive realm, and the other one, it's more of an entertainment realm. So I see it as two different categories.
Yeah. That's a really good point. So outline again for me the two categories. One is so were you saying it's like productive, and the other is more of an entertainment sort of ideology?
Yeah, one is,
what's the productive sense of that?
okay, so in the productive sense, the way that whenever you're making content relating to gaming or simply making the games themselves, you are making a product. Your product is either your content, it could be the game that you're making, it could even be you, because if you are repackaging something else that somebody else has done and putting your own spin on it, really, when it comes down to it, you are the product that you are putting out there. That's the way that I see my content. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if you told me to make a game, I would be like, okay, give me a stick and a rock, and that's about all I got, bud. But when it comes to
hilarious. Love it.
When it comes to putting together a game, there are certain skills that are involved. There's coding, obviously. Then you've got to worry about the writing. You've got to worry about it's a massive production. There's a reason that the gaming industry is one of the biggest in the world. Taken as a whole, the gaming industry is absolutely massive, and that's both a good thing and a bad thing. I would say right now at the present moment, it's a bad thing, but I think that's kind of another topic maybe. But the fact is that there is this juggernaut. There's this juggernaut thing that has to happen, or not a juggernaut thing. There is a massive production that has to go into making one of these things, and the fact is that costs time and money and effort, and people have to learn those things in order to be able to do them. So I mean, there are people who can literally take and make indie games, and they can, small 1 or 2, 3-man productions, and they're fantastic, and you can make a living at this. And that's and there's also other things that you can do in those video games, like voice acting, things of that nature. So I mean, it's not that there's anything, it's not like you're just getting on there and you're just throwing something at it and calling it good. No, these are major big deals.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So in your bio, you said you're making gaming content to the glory of God after getting on Gab and Gab TV. How is
Mhm.
it? And probably I should have checked out your channel before getting on here, but before we started filming. But how is it that you produce gaming content to the glory of God? What is entailed in that, and how is your content different as opposed to a secular channel, for instance?
Okay, so whenever you get online and whenever you get into, and I kicked my desk, whenever you get into um, the gaming world, there are two things that you notice. People like watching the games, okay? People love watching the games, and that's what they are primarily there for. Um, but you also notice, and you'll notice this on Twitch, okay? I hate Twitch with a passion because it's basically um, there's a lot of stuff on there that's just straight up pornographic anymore. Um, I I would hesitate to tell you to just go on there and be on there for like 15 minutes and look around, but I don't want to subject y'all to that. So I'm not going to tell you to do that. But the fact of the matter is that
Yeah.
Yeah.
whenever somebody is
Yeah.
there consuming the gaming content, what they are really taking in is everything around it. Okay. What they're taking in is the rainbow flag in the back. They're taking in all the gay stuff that's on that they put on the screen. That's taking in the dude over there in the dress with the pink hair and the 300 pounds over there playing it and thinking he's a girl, and that, you know, he's empowering for some reason. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but they're taking that in because they're watching the game, but it's coming in the periphery. Okay. The thing that
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. So
trying to
you're
do
saying that the
different.
surroundings.
Yes. Yeah,
Yep.
it's the stuff on the outside. It's the other stuff that they take in as well. It's not simply the gaming content. It's the culture around the it's the culture around the person they are watching. A real quick side note. That's like the big streamers on Twitch. There's actually some big massive um not a what am I looking for? Not a conspiracy, but a big scandal. That's the word I'm looking for. Scandal. There's a big scandal going on right now, where a bunch of streamers that were really popular, all of them really popular and everything. Well, they have millions and millions of followers, and they have, you know, every single time they stream, which is mostly every day, they have hundreds of thousands of people watching them at a time for hours and hours on end. What happened was, when
Wow.
they were all at a party. This is away from Twitch, away from all that stuff, but they were at a party, and apparently somebody had one too many and started feeling up this girl that didn't want to be felt up and stuff. So, but what I'm saying is they're bringing that into the content that they're making.
Yeah.
And that right there needs to
Yeah.
die a
Yep.
horrible, horrible death.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know, that's something that's really a fascinating thing is we often forget that just living differently, just
Yeah.
thinking differently,
Yep.
and even living life with a Christian worldview, watching the things we say, watching the way we act, that has an impact. You know, I've had people at work, coworkers of mine. I have several coworkers of mine who are Christian, and a lot of them who aren't. And I've heard from the ones who aren't say, wow, you know, there's something different about you guys. There's something different. They can pick out without even knowing, those of us who are Christians, they can pick out which ones of us are Christians and which ones aren't, because there's something different. When I asked Toby Sumter earlier this year, he was here in April for the Fight Laugh Feast conference. You know, one of the questions I asked him was, hey, how do we work to either transform a church, transform our society when it's just us, when it's just one person against all of this? And his answer to that was live differently. Be a Christian and live out your Christian worldview. And what we got done talking about on Monday was you reap what you sow. Raymond Simmons talks about in his book, Confessional County, reap it. We should be the best strategists because we understand the law of causality. You reap what you sow. And so you need to make sure that what you're sowing, what you're planting, how you're living your life in private, also make sure that that's good, because that will boil out into society. So that sounds like that's exactly what I'm hearing from you, is even just living as a Christian, just the way you talk, the way that your surrounding is, the way that you portray yourself, even just that will set you apart and will start to change things. So that's a really interesting thing to bring up.
And it really does. What one thing that I've noticed is that you don't, I sit and I've watched a bunch of people either on Twitch or on YouTube or GabTV or everywhere, but you don't hear many people talking about what kind of conversations that they had with some people who were lost, or you don't hear the conversation in the background whenever you're playing. They're like, hey, I had a really interesting sermon the other day, and I learned a whole lot about something. Like just today, I right before this, I recorded something, and I was like, y'all, I had a wonderful Sunday. I learned a lot in church this morning, and if y'all are not if you're not going to a good Bible believing church, y'all need to go. So it's like, guys, this is how you do it. This is how you do it. Like I've literally got a episode of Mario Kart 64 on GabTV. You can look it up. It's called The Sermon on the Speedway. And I get to straight up preaching for about 2.5 minutes playing Mario Kart. Okay. It was fun. Yeah. But I mean, they come for the video game content, and what they get the video game content, and they get the Christian worldview. That's what they get.
Yes. That's fantastic. Awesome. That's fantastic.
I did have one question that is kind of pertinent to what Bruce and I were talking about, I would say a couple of weeks ago, but we were going over a video that was talking about, I think it's a video by the Reformed Gamers, and they were talking about horror as a genre, as a gaming genre. And I had wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the horror genre as the gaming genre that is horror? But first of all, how would you define the horror genre? Because I think that's vitally important to the discussion. But also, what are your thoughts on the genre in general, or if you've played any games in that genre?
So I'm actually not real good with the horror stuff. I'm going to make a personal confession right here, right now. You can take it to the bank. I don't like scary stuff. It scares me. Okay. But, well, yeah, well, but I've actually had this exact question asked to me by a friend of mine on Facebook a while back. And she said, I don't think that my favorite game really falls under that kind of a category. And I came back and I was like, well, sure it does. It can fall under, there is a Christian way to go about it. Do I think that there are many games nowadays that do that? Absolutely not. But there is a way for a Christian to go about the horror genre that I would say a really good one, believe it or not, is Five Nights at Freddy's. Like I said, I don't like scary games because they scare me. I don't do them well. But but this game right here is it was made by a self-professing Christian. granted, I hear he's more of a liberal, but the whole genre is one of the best selling ones for the last decade or so. And he got canceled because he put something out there. I don't remember exactly what he put out there, but he got canceled by the woke mob because I guess he wasn't woke enough. But there's a way to go about the Christian horror genre. Like if you cut back, like that's the difference between the movies they make nowadays for horror and Alfred Hitchcock. Okay. Alfred Hitchcock, Birds, legitimately scary. Like, yeah, it shows its age and all this other stuff, but when you have nothing, you're going about your business, and all of a sudden you see a big old flock of birds, and you've seen that movie, and you're like, they're going to come at me and peck my eyes out and stuff like that. But he didn't show it. It was the suspense. There's a way to go about it that they're not doing nowadays, because all they want is violence and shock value. There is a better way, and that's what Christians need to capitalize on, because this is exactly the trap that the movie industry right now has fallen into, is that they're lazy and they think that special effects and shock value and twerking She-Hulk are the things that need to get people's attention. But what we really want is good storytelling and a good characters. All the special effects in the world doesn't make up for the crappy characters. Okay, same with video games. The only difference between a movie and a video game is that one is interactive. That is the only difference. Well, the main difference.
Yeah. Wow. Well, you were cutting out just a little bit there, but yeah, that was really good stuff. So we've got time for maybe one last quick question. Jake, anything you'd like to add before we kind of wrap up, or ask a question?
I think this is kind of the biggest question, and what we kind of went into this this whole interview wanting to know. But would you say video games are as profitable or on the same level as, say, playing music or playing sports? What makes a video game profitable? What makes a game something that you can replace maybe playing music or sports with, or if that's not the case?
Okay, so I would have to have you define profitable, because the thing about video games is that and the things that make them so dangerous is that they teach. It's not just something you learn. It's not just something you go into and you do. It's something that teaches you, because you're along for the ride. You know what I mean? So, something that video games can help us do is logic, problem solving. Something else that video games can do, something that was really, really, really cool about around the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 era, was the music games such as Guitar Hero and Rocksmith and things like that. Rocksmith actually took it to a whole nother level, because it actually taught you to play guitar, which was really, really, really cool. But there are ways that games can teach us things that we may not have an initial ROI on. And it may seem like you're not learning anything, but you are. One of the things that really comes to mind, at least for me, when I first started making content for GabTV, the big thing that I was trying to do was to make a completely mobile recording setup. That means have a face cam, have a game, and have all of this being able to be recorded and edited all on mobile devices. And I couldn't do it.
Wow.
But you know what? I dug into it, and I learned Dude, I learned how to sideload stuff onto my iPad, which is you're not supposed to be able to do that, but I had to learn that skill. And now, okay, well, you know what? I'm having to learn OBS because I went to a computer now, and I'm learning I'm digging into other stuff. So there's maybe not an initial ROI, the way that there's other things, but you know what? Whenever you were playing this game, 15 years ago, and you remember how awesome it was, and then now I'm out here in the real world, literally talking to these people around a gang box on lunch break, and we're having that shared experience where we both experienced that video game when we were growing up, and we were like, oh man, that was so cool, and stuff. It was almost like we were there together. That leads to that connection that we have, that we can go off of, and that and those people listen to me because we have that, and then give them the gospel. I mean, that sometimes it's the intangibles that we look for, and that's the things that we can need. That's like, I would, if people that think that video games are necessarily a waste of time, or your time could be better used for other things, and I'm like, okay, well, tell that to the little old lady who likes crocheting. She doesn't really make anything, she just likes crocheting. Okay, well, where does the line stop with are we looking for something tangible right then, right there? I'd say it's more of an exercise in patience whenever you go into this, because you're playing these games and you're having these experiences, but then you can bring all that together with these other people that have these experiences, and then you can pull from that.
Yeah.
And I would really, really like to see. I would really love to. I'll tell you what, my big dream. I'm gonna tell you my big dream. I want to see a first person RPG where it's following the book of Joshua going into the promised land.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, it's a great idea. Well, unfortunately we are out of time, but this has been a wonderful conversation.
It has.
Really good perspective, really good points. If people wanted to watch your content, where could they go to do that?
All my stuff is on GabTV at tv.gab.com/channel/Brandon Raby. I've got all sorts of stuff. I've got Pokemon content. I've got Mario Kart. I've got F-Zero X. I've got Sonic Colors Ultimate that I'm going through right now. I've got like 250 videos on there, and not all of them are video games. I'm on there expounding on some scripture on some stuff, and just going over some general how to hustle stuff.
Nice. Okay. Stuff. Wonderful. Well, thank you, Brandon, so much for joining us today, chatting with us. I don't think we offended anyone, so that works.
I had a blast.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Yeah, great content, and thanks for helping us build our series on building a Christian culture. For all of you in the audience, definitely check out his content. Thank you so much for watching or listening to us today. Don't forget, trdshow.net is our show website. Send us an email at trdshow@protonmail.com. Like this video. Please give us a 5-star rating on your podcast platform of your choice, whatever you're listening on, because that really helps us. Again, we really appreciate you watching and listening to us, and we will see you on Monday. And remember, everyone, in all that you do, do it as unto the Lord.